Back with the Fox News alert as Russia levels Ukrainian cities, Vice President Kamala Harris makes an interesting mistake in a pledge to defend Ukraine. Listen.
So I will say what I know we all say, and I will say over and over again. The United States stands firmly with the Ukrainian people in defense of the NATO alliance.
Now, note, she said in defense of the NATO alliance. Problem is, Ukraine is not in NATO. So was that a mistake or on purpose? The White House even changing the transcript, which we have here to read, the United States stands firmly with the Ukrainian people and in defense of the NATO alliance. And if you listen to that and then you look here, as you see we've highlighted, you can see right there, that and got added in. Charlie Hurt, what is going on here?
It's insane. You know, she is really out of her depth, especially when she goes over to Europe and starts talking about this kind of stuff. She's sort of unsafe at any speed. Obviously, propaganda is part of every war. That's why what politicians say in the middle of war is very, very important, and it's very important that they get it right. And this business of her saying one thing and then the White House trying to clean it up only further undermines her credibility. And, you know, there's a lot of hand-wringing about the U.S., people wanting the U.S. to do more, to take a more active role in the defense of Ukraine. Well, I can tell you a big reason why the American people are not down with that is because they simply do not trust this administration to carry out anything that is dangerous. And when you get things like that from somebody like Kamala Harris, it's just sort of highlighted and underscored and makes people lose all that much more confidence.
And we were just playing video of her standing next to the Polish president where, of course, she laughed. And, Jackie, you've covered international events with world leaders. Should they not have sent her for this role? Was this a mistake?
It's interesting what they choose to send her to do, what they task her with. It's usually a lot of things that, you know, they don't want to kind of do themselves. And they put her out front in these situations that she appears to not really be ready for. And so, you know, you look at this and to Charlie's point, you ask yourself, again, I said this yesterday, these are the diplomats that are representing this country. It scares me. And to Rachel's point that she made yesterday as well, I look back on this and I wish we could rewind a little bit because I wish we weren't here right now having to have them make these difficult decisions. I wish they would have considered putting sanctions in place before this got out of control, before an invasion started, to let Vladimir Putin know that we were serious. But they were scared. They thought that would escalate things and it would speed up his timeline. We don't have a crystal ball to see what would have happened if they'd play this a different way. But the way we're watching it play out is certainly scary for us here on the ground, especially when you're talking about things like chemical weapons and nuclear weapons. This is not a joke.
Now, she also made some comments speaking ahead of the midterms and what Democrats should say to voters before the November midterms. Here is a little bit of what she said. Rachel, I want you to listen and get your thoughts.
Our task is to show people that in many ways they got what they ordered. Right? They said this is what they wanted. They stood in line. They took time from work. It was difficult. And a lot of what they demanded, they got.
Well, I'm not sure they asked for record inflation, out-of-control crime, and a border that's on fire, Rachel, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's not what most of us voted for. But let's face it, this is what the Democrats ordered. And part of this goes back to the original problem that we talked about. Why is she there when we know she's clearly not qualified? And this is a bigger question for America as we are living in this equity and diversity way of hiring people. The office of vice president, the cabinet of the president, these are very important jobs that should not be relegated to people just because they are a certain skin color or a certain gender or meet some political identity that is fashionable right now. What she said was actually very dangerous, could have led to war. We need to return to an America where achievement and a merit-based way of achievement, and that is not happening. And so it's not. I don't want to single out just Kamala Harris. Does anyone on this panel think that Lloyd Austin is the very best that we have for Secretary Secretary of Defense, or for that matter, that our system doesn't fire people when they screw up, like General Milley. Imagine being Zelensky right now. These are the misfits that should have been fired after Afghanistan, and now they are leading the military response in this crucial time for your country. I mean, this is make or break for Ukraine. We need to get back to merit-based hiring, away from all this identity politics, and put in the very best. We have amazing people in this country. Hire the best.
I hear you on your criticism across the administration, and perhaps Defense Secretary Austin's a discussion for another day, but specifically related to Harris. Charlie, let me ask you, we just saw a retooling of her entire comms shop because she did not handle well the border czar job that she got. They were going to try and reset, if you will, as they say here in Washington. Didn't seem that that's working.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see a lot of other Democrats, especially in Congress, who are waking up to the polling that they're seeing for November. And of course, they face voters this year, whereas Kamala Harris and Joe Biden do not. And so I think we're starting to see a real fissure between Democrats who are up for re-election and the White House. And we're going to see, I think, probably more daylight as time goes on. But the thing that's really frustrating about that is even though you have clear evidence that the White House is leading a disastrous political campaign, you don't have a White House that seems open to changing policies. You don't have a White House that seems serious about addressing things like inflation, like gas prices, in any sort of rational, intelligent, or even-handed kind of way.
Going to be a very interesting midterms come November. Hang tight.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.